The Last of Us! What's up, folks? And welcome back to a new video. I am sorry that it was really quiet around here for the last few months, but now I am back with a new video about The Last of Us. In this video, we will talk about the main elements that make The Last of Us environment so special, and how you can create your own Last of Us environment in Blender with these elements. We will talk about the 5 elements that make the environment so unique and why it's so important. While I talk about the elements, I'll be creating my own scene in Blender and showing you what I did by using those elements. The first point is remaining architecture. This is very important because many buildings still retain their original shape, or it's still easy to see what they were before the outbreak. Even though they are mostly overgrown and have many destroyed parts, the original structures are often still recognizable. So we need to find a good balance between destroyed and solid. So the first step is to find references and look for ideas. I want to create a room with a big hole that reveals part of the wider environment. This helps show the original shape of the building, but also highlights the destroyed parts. I start by creating 4 walls and use a Boolean cutout to make the hole. After I had a rough block out, I started with some simple texturing. I just used an old concrete material and painted over it with water leaks and moss. For the floor, I used a plate material and painted some parts over with dirt. That actually leads us to the next element on the list. As I mentioned before, a good balance is important. The same goes for the next element, reclaiming nature. In The Last of Us, there are many buildings that are fully overgrown, but also ones that are barely touched by nature. Just like before, it should still be clear what kind of architecture we're looking at, but also how much time has passed, shown through the amount of nature taking over. This step and the next one are really important. I used grass and plant assets for the floor, and for the walls and the hole, I used an add-on called Ivy Generator Pro. I also looked at real-life nature references for how grass grows and spreads. I placed a lot of ivy around the hole so it looks like it's growing in from the outside. Even though we already have some architecture and nature, the element that really makes this apocalypse feel special is environmental storytelling through detail. In the games or the series, you often find things like papers, pictures, or other objects that give you an idea of what might have happened in that space. Love for detail is absolutely necessary here. It's what brings the scene to life and tells a deeper story without words. For my scene, I first added wooden planks on the side of the room to bring in more detail. After that, I focused on props like a couch, a closet, and added more dirt to make the space feel abandoned. Then I shifted my attention to storytelling elements. I placed papers, food scraps, and scattered bricks and wooden planks to make it look like the wall was brutally torn down. I also added a ladder outside the wall to suggest that other people have passed through the room, adding a sense of history and movement to the space. Atmospheric lighting is essential in every Blender scene, but especially important in this kind of environment. The use of lighting is limited because we mostly rely on natural light, with the occasional exception of flashlights, warm lights, or fire. In my scene, I only use 2 light sources. The main one is an HDRI, which shines through the hole in the room to simulate natural sunlight. The second is a spotlight from above, casting a leaf silhouette onto the left and right walls to add some extra depth and visual interest. The last element depends on your scene, but environment layering plays a big role in how large and immersive your scene feels. In my case, I wanted to create an abandoned downtown city with a huge forest behind it. So I repeated all the steps I used for the room. This layering helps give depth and scale to the scene, making it feel like part of a much bigger world. I started by placing some house models I found online, rotating a few of them to add variety and a sense of collapse or decay. On the other side of the town, I placed some houses I had already made in one of my previous videos. I also had the idea to add a basketball court, which I thought would look great at the corner of the street. It adds a nice touch of everyday life before the outbreak, and just for a bit of extra detail, I placed a small water spot in the middle of the scene, because why not? Right after that, I started working on the street. I created a path and placed it to match the layout I had in mind for the city. Then I added a plane and used a curve modifier to shape it along the path. Next, I placed some destroyed cars and a bus on the street. I also scattered concrete chunks and dirt across the road to make it look more damaged and abandoned. And of course, I didn't forget to add street barriers. Not to forget, I also added electricity poles along the sidewalks on both sides of the street. For me, they always bring that Last of Us vibe, since you see them so often throughout the game. They're simple, but they add a strong sense of realism and connection to the world. Okay, now to the final part, and then let's take a look at how the scene turned out. The last step was adding trees. I placed them on the right side next to the houses and of course filled out the background with a huge forest. I also added a water tower in the back and another building tucked into the forest to give the environment even more depth. And that's pretty much it. In Nuke, I composited a distant city skyline and some mountains in the background, along with particles, grain glow, and other effects to add more realism and atmosphere. Let's have a look at how the final scene came together. I think it turned out pretty well. The plants moving in the wind and the particles really help bring the scene to life. Let's go over the elements one more time. So first, remaining architecture. Most of the objects should still keep their original shape, but it should be clear that they're abandoned. Secondly, reclaiming nature. Again, you need to find the perfect balance between the original shape and an abandoned, overgrown look. But it's better to use more plants than too few. The most important element, environmental storytelling. Use papers, pictures, graffiti, or other objects like ladders to hint at what happened in your scene. Lighting is another key element, and in an apocalypse is often limited. So use natural light most of the time, or rely on things like fire and flashlights. Last but not least, we have environment layering. This depends on your scene, but showing more of the world gives you more opportunities for storytelling and added detail. So keep these elements in mind if you want to create a Last of Us scene. If you have any questions or need help, feel free to ask in the comments or DM me on Instagram. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you soon.